Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Come on in. Come on in. I was just looking at the Atlas of the World, and I was looking at Japan. Japan has came out with some of the greatest video game consoles of all time. And my absolute favorite system by them would be the Super Nintendo. So what's a better way to start off the holiday season than to enjoy some Super Nintendo games? Today I'm going to show you guys my top 10 favorite Super Nintendo games of all time. If you enjoy this list, hit that like button, subscribe, and ding that bell for more like this. And if you like skits like this, let me know in the comments section. Anyway, enjoy the top 10, as I'm sure many of you might actually be surprised at what my top 10 list will be. And I bid you my top 10. Have a wonderful day, and be safe out there. Number 10. ActRaiser. ActRaiser is a wonderful game that came out in 1990. This game started off as a weekend rental, but ended up being a purchase because this game was so much fun. It cut the game into two separate sections of platforming and a city building simulation. Now, basically, you need to go from area to area in this game and liberate the land. When you first go to an area, you are greeted with your first platforming level. Then you go into a city building simulation. But within each platforming level, you actually fight a boss at the end stage. And, this is actually really reminiscent of something like Super Ghouls and Ghosts or Castlevania. It's very similar to that. It's really fun, actually. The city building simulation part is you actually need to clear the land of all these different monsters with your angel friend, which they didn't call angel in this, or did they? I can't remember. But it's really fun, actually, and it's a good way to split up the monotony. It's really fun. Published by Enix before they became part of Square, and developed by Quintet, this game is one of my favorite games of the Super Nintendo, and I highly recommend that you pick it up on a mobile phone if you still can, or if you're able to play it on the Super Nintendo. Number 9. Kirby Superstar. Kirby Superstar is a platforming game developed by HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo in 1996. It is my favorite Kirby game of all time as well. This game's advertising right on the front of the box features 8 games. It's basically 7 short subsections of basic gameplay and 2 mini-games as well. I find it really fun. Spring Breeze is like a little soft remake of Kirby's Dream Land. Dynablade is really fun. Gourmet Race just has Kirby and King Dedede racing against each other. The Great Cave Offensive, my personal favorite, is a Metroidvania style, where you go and explore this cave for 60 hidden treasures throughout the entire area. And it's a really fun type of game, and it's more than just a Metroidvania. It's also almost a little bit like a 2D collectathon. It is so much fun, and there's so much call-outs to different Super Nintendo games, and Nintendo franchises in general. Revenge of the Meta Knight is a story-driven mode, and is very good, actually. I highly recommend this entire game. Milky Way Wishes is the largest mode in the game, and honestly, is super fun as well. The arena, where you can challenge bosses, and the 2 mini games, which can be played single player or multiplayer as well. Samurai Kirby, and the Megaton Punch game, where you could try to punch through the planet against your friend. Yeah, you could play this in every mode with friends. They just end up becoming little helpers out of the powers that you get from Kirby. I highly recommend picking this game up. They released it on Wii. They released it on Wii U as well, and the Nintendo DS made Kirby Superstar Ultra, and I would highly recommend playing that version as well, unless you have the Super Nintendo version. This is number 9, Kirby Superstar. Number 8, Super Mario RPG. Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, is actually a role-playing game. Wow, you wouldn't have ever guessed that. All smartassery aside. It was developed by Square and published by Nintendo, and came out in 1996. This was Square's entry and attempt to try to get the Western audiences into the RPG scene. They figured Mario can do anything, and they were right. It got me into RPGs, as this was my first RPG that I ever played, and I fell in love. They decided to follow Rare's footsteps and try to use pre-rendered 3D backgrounds, and everything is pre-rendered 3D, and it is a gorgeous game for the Super Nintendo. A lot of fun and a little bit dialed back, but the story in this game is fantastic. I would say that the character's writing, other than Mario, because he is silent protagonist, is written very well, and I think it's a really fun game with special magic abilities for everybody, and I highly recommend picking it up. I played this game a lot as a child, and have played it a lot in my adult life as well. If you like RPGs, and you like Mario, this is the RPG of Mario games that started it all. I highly recommend you pick it up and play it however you can. Number 7, Mega Man X. Mega Man X is an action platform game made by Capcom, developed and published for the Super Nintendo in 1993 in Japanese, and 1994 in America and Europe. This game takes about a century after, takes place about a century after the original Mega Man series, and it's a futuristic world populated with both humans and Reploids, the robots capable of thinking, feeling, and growing like their human creators. Mega Man X is a super fun game that is very action platform centric, where you are shooting just like in the old Mega Man games, except you get a nice, beautiful game with a fantastic soundtrack. All the bosses are really well thought out and quite fun. It is really fun to upgrade your armor throughout the game, and get upgrades to your weapon system throughout the game as well. It isn't a particularly long game, and it isn't a particularly hard game. It is one of the harder games on the Super Nintendo, but it isn't too difficult. I highly recommend picking this up if you are a Mega Man fan, and you really like the Super Nintendo. This game was released on the Virtual Console, on the Wii and the Wii U, so if you still have that, then you can also pick it up on the new Nintendo DS. It's super fun, and I would definitely recommend giving it a shot if you have access to the game. This is number 7, Mega Man X. Number 6, Super Mario World. Super Mario World is a platforming game, well known and created by Nintendo, and Shigeru Miyamoto as the head honcho on this project, as the producer. Came out in 1990. It is a fantastic game and was a game made specifically to show off the power of the Super Nintendo back in 1990. It is a really fun Mario game, really great platforming game, and one of the best in the series. It introduced Yoshi. It introduced the cape. It introduced some really fun mechanics, spin jumping, all sorts of fun stuff. I would definitely recommend picking this up any way that you can. This was one of my first games that I ever had as a kid. When I got my Super Nintendo back in the day. I got the one that came packaged with the Super Mario All-Stars, yes, but without Super Mario World. We had the Super Mario World separate from it, and I played Super Mario World a lot, as well as Super Mario All-Stars, but those are not Super Nintendo games. Those are HD remakes, the start of the HD remake. But hey, maybe we'll come up with a video for that as well. But, alas, Super Mario World is one of the most amazing games on the Super Nintendo, and it was created so early in the console's lifetime. I highly recommend you play this game if you love Mario games, because this is one of the best of all time. This is Super Mario World. Number 6. Number 5. Final Fantasy VI, or known as Final Fantasy III in the North American release. North American release came out in 1994 and is a role-playing game developed and published by Square, the Super Nintendo. This is one of the other RPGs that got me into RPGs way back in the day. And this would be probably my third RPG ever played. No, fourth. Sorry. This would be my fourth RPG ever played, as my first one was Super Mario RPG, my second one was Pokemon Red, and my third one was Final Fantasy VII. Yes, I know that Final Fantasy VII came out before Pokemon, but neither here nor there. Final Fantasy VI, however, is a fantastic game, and it is my favorite Final Fantasy game in the entire series. It follows a very wide range of characters who all have varying personalities, and all of the playable characters are essentially main characters in this game. And it also toys around with having a strong female protagonist as a main character, and arguably the main character of the game to many. I love Terra, actually. She is one of my favorite characters. Her struggle with some of the things that happens with her within the game. I do not want to spoil anything. Even though this game is so old, came out back in 1994, I can't spoil this for you. This game is amazing. The story, the combat system is awesome as well, with the return of the active time battle system, which was introduced in Final Fantasy IV. And it's really good. It makes the battles a lot more interactive, and it feels like you're actually thinking about things. Some of the hardest boss battles in the entirety of the series, and some of the most unique puzzles and dungeons in the series. I recommend you play this game over any other Final Fantasy. If you've never played Final Fantasy, this is where I recommend you start. If you've played other Final Fantasies and you haven't played this one, pick it up. It's come out for Super Nintendo, PlayStation, Game Boy Advanced, Android, iOS, and you can get it on Windows as well. It's amazing. Pick it up. 100%. This is number 5, Final Fantasy VI. Number 4, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest. DKC 2 is a platforming game developed by Rare and published by Nintendo for the Super Nintendo at the end of the quarter of 1995 in the North American release. It's the second installment in the Donkey Kong Country series and is an excellent game. Having the inclusion of Dixie Kong makes the gameplay here actually much more varied. Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong was like Donkey Kong Light in Donkey Kong Country, and it really didn't feel good to be playing Diddy Kong most of the time. In this game, there is some great differences between the two. Diddy Kong can run faster and can actually roll through enemies more efficiently, in my opinion, where Dixie Kong might not be as fast and cannot jump as high, but she can spin with her hair, making her go farther so she can go over wide gaps. This game is super fun and also utilizes that pre-rendered 3D imagery that we were talking about last time. This game is better than the first. When it comes to gameplay mechanics, it pushes you harder. It is definitely a harder game than the first, but it is so much more fun. Bringing back the animal friends, there are some different ones and some of the same. We have Squitter the Spider, Rambi the Rhino, Ratty the Rattlesnake, On Guard the Swordfish, and Squawks the Parrot. They each have unique abilities and are super fun to play with. If you have not played this game ever, I highly recommend it. It's the best regular platformer on the system, in my opinion. It challenges your mechanics, and it challenges your brain with different puzzle mechanics. If you haven't played it ever, it's only been released on the Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance. So if you are able to play it on either system, I highly recommend it. The Super Nintendo version is vastly superior. If you have it, definitely play it. It's great to play by yourself or with a friend. It's multiplayer. It's great. Enjoy Donkey Kong Country 2, as it is my number 4. Number 3, Super Metroid. Super Metroid is an action-adventure platformer developed and published by Nintendo for the Super Nintendo in 1994. It is the third installment in the Metroid series, so I guess Metroid 3, following the events of the Game Boy game Metroid 2: Return of Samus. Players play as Samus Aran, who travels to planet Zebes, or Zebes, or Zebes, or Zubuz, to retrieve an infant Metroid creature stolen by the space pirate leader Ridley. The gameplay and exploration in this game is fantastic. I highly recommend playing this game over most others in the entirety of the library. This game is fantastic, allowing you to play the game in many different ways. It also is one of the few games where a tutorial isn't needed, as the gameplay will teach you everything that you need to know, gradually, throughout the entirety of the game. As this is a Metroidvania, you will be traveling throughout the entirety of the planet, searching for different items and weapon and armor upgrades to traverse the entirety of the planet and try to rescue this stolen Metroid. With upgrades to graphics, music, and gameplay in the Metroid series, this game is the best side-scrolling Metroid game ever created, in my opinion. I highly recommend picking it up for Super Nintendo or playing it on the Switch, as they have released it in the Super NES Classic Edition, and on the Virtual Console for the Switch. I would definitely recommend playing this. You'll get so much joy out of the visuals and the gameplay that you won't want to put it down. I've played this game so many times throughout my life, and I actually got it in 1994. It wasn't a game that my other friends knew of that much, but it was a game that I absolutely loved. I've attempted to speedrun this game as well, and I am just not good enough at it. But the skill ceiling in this game is so high. You can have so much skill expression in this game, and you can show it off to your friends. Though it is a first player game only for one person, it is definitely a game that I remember playing with friends, and if you happen to die, you pass that controller over. But not so much anymore. I would definitely recommend playing this alone. And it is definitely the best Metroidvania that I've played that is of the side-scrolling variety, especially on the Super Nintendo. Number 2. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. This may come as a surprise to many, as The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is number 1 on many people's top 10 list. This game is still an absolute masterpiece. An action-adventure game developed and published by Nintendo, it is the third installment in the Legend of Zelda series and released in 1991. It released with critical and commercial success, with many people naming it as one of the greatest video games of all time, and I would be inclined to agree with that. This game got me into the action-adventure genre for the very first time, and helped shape my love of action-adventure games going forward into the future. This game introduced a lot of tropes that The Legend of Zelda did not have previously. The introduction of the Master Sword was in this game, where you first actually pull the Master Sword from the pedestal. Everything in this game, from the pulling of the Master Sword, the parallels of Light World and Dark World, and the many bosses and enemies in this game, actually made for a very enthralling action-adventure game. For a Super Nintendo game, the graphics are beautiful. You can tell exactly what things are supposed to be. And it feels very good to become stronger as you progress through the story. I've played this game in many different ways: classic, 3-heart challenge, randomizer, and I never seem to get bored of it. It is the action RPG that got me into the genre after all. This is my number 2, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. But if A Link to the Past is number 2, what game could be such a masterpiece to be number 1? Let's find out. Number 1! Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is my absolute most favorite game for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It was released in 1995, developed and published by Square. The game's development team included 3 designers that Square dubbed the Dream Team: Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Square's Final Fantasy series; Yuji Horii, the creator of Enix's Dragon Quest; and Akira Toriyama himself, the creator and author of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Super, as well as the character designer of Dragon Quest. This team was able to come together and create one of the greatest masterpieces of our time. Alongside them, Yasunori Mitsuda wrote the majority of the soundtrack before falling ill for working so diligently on this game. Who better to replace him, though, other than Nobuo Uematsu, the composer of the Final Fantasy series. With all of these men working in conjunction, they were able to make the most beautiful and in-depth game of their time. The game's story follows a group of adventurers who travel through time to prevent a global catastrophe. And that is all I'm going to go into it for the story. If you would like to find out more about the story, play the game! It has been released multiple times for the Nintendo DS. It has been ported to the Virtual Console, PlayStation Network, iOS, Android, and Microsoft Windows. So you have multiple ways that you can play this game, and I highly recommend it. But I mostly would recommend the Super Nintendo version, just because that's the version that I played, and the version that I feel is the best, in my opinion. Chrono Trigger was a critical success upon release, and is frequently cited as one of the greatest video games of all time, something that I dearly agree with. Many aspects of this game were revolutionary at the time, specifically the multiple 12 endings that you could achieve, the plot-related side quests focusing on character development, the unique battle system that forced you to think about positioning and think about what moves that you can use together with your teammates, the techniques that you can use with your teammates or by yourself, and the beautiful, detailed graphics for the Super Nintendo at the time were very animated and beautiful at the time. I still believe that this game has aged like a fine wine and will continue to do so as the times go on. Have you ever gotten all of the endings before? Let me know down in the comments if you have. The charm, love, and effort that was put into this game is evident from the moment that you boot it up. The fantastic music with the wonderful slideshow of events that happens throughout the game when you boot up the game gives you just a little taste of what you are in store for. There isn't another game like this on the Super Nintendo, so I highly suggest, if you love role-playing games, this is one of the best ever created. This is Chrono Trigger, my #1 favorite Super Nintendo game.
That was my top 10 favorite Super Nintendo games. Were you surprised? Did you expect to see A Link to the Past at #1? A younger DMFF would have said so. But as the time goes on, I just think that Chrono Trigger is the absolute greatest game of all time for the Super Nintendo. I would love to hear your lists. Drop them in the comments below. Anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like, subscribe, comment. I'll see you all on the next video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.